So I'm Tasha Oglesby, and I'm with the School Readiness Branch, and it's good to be here today with all my Infinite Campus friends. I'm going to be talking about the preschool basics, and today we'll be going through enrolling preschool children and special instructions for those kiddos who are in KSI or RTI and Head Start children, and then we'll look at preschool enrollment counts. So preschool, we have three different age codes, and they're all based on what age the student was on August 1st. So if they're a 97, they were 2 on August 1st. If they're a 98, they were 3 on August 1st. And if they're 99, they were 4 on August 1st. So again, it's all based on the student's birthday on August 1st. You qualify for preschool by either being a 4-year-old state funded at risk, and we'll go over what that means exactly later, or you're a 97, a 98, or a 99 with a disability. So if one of these students shows up at your doorstep, you are required to accept that child into your program. Preschool, state funded preschool does not have a waiting list. A district can decide if they have open slots to add other children that do not qualify for preschool, but those would be funded at a district level. So each student that is enrolled in preschool, they have to have a preschool service tab. And this is what that looks like. So the enrollment will populate when you've enrolled that child. But the start date will actually be self-populated. And this start date can be different than the enrollment date because a child may show up on Friday and then you have a holiday. So you would actually put the start day as their first day of presence. Some districts go ahead and end date at their very beginning of the year based on their calendars, and others wait until they see what actually their end date is. On the left side, you have the preschool type, which is actually the section that tells us how we're funding these preschool children. And we're going to go through each of those and tell you when to check those funding parts. On the right side, we have a family component, and these are the services that you've provided for families this year. We go back to the setting. There are setting options for preschool. There's a public school setting, there is a Head Start setting, and there is a home setting, and we'll talk about those again later. There's a place for your home visits. Home visits have been waived for this year, but in the future, you'll be putting your home visits in. Assessment information, we are required to use one of the approved assessments in preschool, so that's a drop-down box. You just select that. And then your modality. Are you online? Are you doing pencil and paper? So what is a 99 at risk? What kind of student is that? That is a child who was 4 on August 1 and they meet the 160% federal poverty level. The only time this box should be checked, state funded at risk, is for a 4-year-old who meets this income level. And that's because state funded at risk is only funded for 1 year, your 4-year-old year, by the state. A 99 with disabilities, a student who was 4 on August 1 with a disability, you need to check 2 tabs in that preschool type. And again, the preschool type is how we allocate your funding. So you'll check state funded with disabilities, and then you also have to check an income level. All 4-year-olds have to have an income level. So they'll either have a state funded at risk, that's that 160 again, or they'll be over income. There's also a chance that they might be Head Start enhanced, which we'll talk about later. And then I just have a picture of what that would look like on your preschool type. So if they're state funded at risk, you would check 99 disabilities, and state funded at risk. If they were over income, you would check state funded with disabilities and over income. So again, if a 4-year-old child has a disability, they need 2 checks on their preschool type. So what happens when you have a child, they come in, they don't qualify based on the other things, but you can see that they would benefit from preschool, or they may have a disability, but they've never had service before. You're going to put those children in RTI or KSI, and your district is going to create that plan. But as far as I see, you're going to enroll that child. You're going to create an enrollment tab. And if your RTI program is in a public school building, for example, you're going to put them in a preschool classroom where you have vacancies, or maybe you're going to do a small group. You're going to meet a couple of times a week. Then that child's going to be enrolled under a P. Now, we do have other districts who actually create a RTI packet, and the families provide those interventions. So this student would be enrolled as an N because they're actually not attending a public school for their RTI sessions. And on that enrollment tab, once you've selected either the P or the N, under Start Comments, you're going to write RTI KSI. Once you've done that, then you need to go over and do their preschool tab and do their preschool type. And what you check on that, you can't check you'll check other, because you can't check the boxes above that because currently they're not funded. So you're going to check other, and you may write in RTI, or you can write in determining eligibility. This district that I selected, they've actually chosen to write what they're looking at during RTI so that they can track that. So they've checked other, and they put RTI RTIC. So then your student, they go through RTI and they qualify. What do you need to do? So the first thing, you don't need to recreate the wheel. You don't need to do another preschool service tab. You're just going to use your current one, and you're going to alter that. So you're going to go in where you had checked other, and you're going to remove that, and you're going to remove the writing. Then you go up to the disabled state fund, and you're going to check that. So don't recreate the wheel, just use the preschool tab that you have and the preschool type and alter that. Again, if they're a 4-year-old, you need to have this disabled state fund and an income level. So there's been some questions of when do I check disabled state fund or state funded with disabilities? These are children that are 97, 98s, or 99s, and they have a current IEP for this school year. Their enrollment type can either be a P, meaning they're receiving preschool services. They're receiving special ed and preschool services. Or an N, they're only receiving special education services. This might be a student that the family decided not to enroll in preschool. They're only bringing them in for special education services, or it could be a Head Start student with a disability, and the public school is serving that child with their disability. Those children, again, would be an N. So on that preschool type, what other instances might you check other? If you have tuition students in your district, you would check other and write in tuition, or you could write in over income preschool. Please do not check the over income preschool box, because that tells us that that child is being funded by the state, which in this case they wouldn't be. They would be funded by the district, or the families would be paying tuition. Another instance where you might check others, we have some districts that want all English language learners, whether they're 3 or 4, to go ahead and come to preschool, and they fund those. So you would check other and put in English language learners. We also have a couple of districts that have universal preschool. So if those children in their universal preschool do not qualify on the upper boxes, they check other and put in universal preschool. These children won't pull in our funding count, but you'll still be able to track how many students you have under that other category. Head Start. When do I check Head Start? If you have Head Start that's housed within a public school building, you can check Head Start. This Head Start will remove you from our funding pool count. So if you check Head Start, those children will not be counted in the preschool funding count. So you've checked Head Start. What do you do for setting? If your blended program is housed within a public school building, please put public school. If your Head Start is housed within a different building, say you have a classroom, a blended classroom at a community action site or a church, you would check the setting Head Start. We've had a lot of questions this year about what is Head Start Enhanced. Again, that's one of those preschool types that you can check for funding. Head Start Enhanced is a preschool student that's actually receiving additional Head Start services. They might have a family advocate that's going to their home funded by Head Start. They might be participating in professional development sponsored by Head Start. They might have wraparound services, or maybe Head Start's paying for their transportation. So this child would be a preschool student whose experience is being enhanced by Head Start. These enhanced numbers have to be negotiated with your Head Start grantee. They only have a limited number of children that they can allocate to Head Start Enhanced. The other caveat is these children cannot be counted in your Head Start full utilization. So a Head Start Enhanced child cannot be counted in that number for Head Start full utilization. And you can negotiate that number with your Head Start grantee. And in that preschool type, when you have a Head Start Enhanced, they have to have 2 boxes checked. They can only be a 4-year-old. And of course, they're going to have Head Start Enhanced checked, but they're either disabled state fund or state funded at risk. They cannot be over income preschool. These are the only 2 categories that can be Head Start Enhanced. So once we've got the preschool type filled out, we have to go down to setting. Preschool students should be enrolled typically in public school. So your setting is public school. Even if this has been an issue this year, if you have virtual instruction and the kiddos are at home, it is still, the setting is public school because preschool is providing those virtual experiences. Either a preschool staff member is meeting with those children virtually, or the district is funding something like ABC Mouse. So we are still, typically, we are providing those services, so the setting should be public school. If you check home, then you will be removed from the funding count, and you will only receive IDA funding for that child. And if you check Head Start, you will also be removed from the preschool enrollment funding count. We're going to talk briefly about pulling the enrollment counts. Funding for preschool is based on the average of 2 enrollment counts. One is taken December 1st, which we're finishing up right now, and the other is March 1st, which will be starting pretty shortly. It'll be here before we know it. You need to make sure before those 2 dates that all your children are actively enrolled. You need to clean up, make sure your IEPs are locked, and you also need to make sure that every child that's enrolled has that preschool service tab and their preschool type is filled out. Because again, that's where we're pulling our funding from. You can run a preschool enrollment count from IC, which is great, and it's a helpful tool that you can do several times a year just to make sure your numbers are the same that you're keeping. You do that on the left-hand side. You go under KY state reporting, then KDE reports, and preschool enrollment counts. When that pulls up, you can either do a summary, which is going to tell you, based on your sites, each enrollment category and how many you have pulling under that, or you can do a detailed count, which is going to include things like your enrollment date, your IEP start date, the disability, your at-risk status. The only thing about that detailed report, you have to be careful because it's going to have student identifiable information on it. So just be careful about who you share that with when you pull that detailed report. And this is what it looks like when you pull that report. So each column is going to tell you where that child is pulling for funding. And that's going to be noted by the number 1. If you have a child and you don't see them there, one way you can filter that is by filtering for zeros. So you're going to filter, go up to the right and filter for zeros in each column. You have a child that's 0 all the way across. That means they're enrolled, but they're not pulling for any funding. So you're going to take that state ID back into Infinite Campus, put that number in, and then do a deeper dive and figure out why they're not pulling. We're going to look at some of the reasons they may not be pulling that we see. So if it's a student with disability and they're not pulling for anything, first you have to make sure that their grade coding is correct. So what age were they on August 1st? Make sure that's correct. Then if they were a 99, look at that preschool type and make sure they've got state funded with disability checked and an income level. Because sometimes if you don't have that income level, Infinite Campus is looking for that since they're a 4-year-old, it won't pull that child. So make sure if they're 99, they have that income level as well as the disability checked. If they have an IEP and they're still not pulling, you need to look at the top section of the IEP. If any of those sections are not filled out, Infinite Campus can't read it or pull it into our program, into our account. So make sure those are filled out, that special education status, the setting, and the primary disability. The other thing we see a lot is children have duplicate preschool service tabs. You can see in this one, they have 2, maybe somebody started, then they went back the next day, didn't realize they had started, or they wanted to change something on their tab. They had done it wrong, so they created a new one. When you do a double tab, it's either going to do 2 things. It's going to completely remove you from the count, or it's going to count you twice. So you're going to think that you're receiving funding for 14 kids, and you're going ahead and allocating that money across the district when really you're only going to receive funding for 13 kids. So you need to make sure you only have one preschool service tab. Delete the outdated one. So make sure that's one thing. Always go back and check those tabs. Make sure you only have one. Those are the main issues that we see. If you do have any questions on preschool, feel free to contact Andrea Bartholomew or myself, and we'd be happy to help you with those. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we do have a couple questions for you, so thank you. One question is, can you speak to proper enrollment setup in Infinite Campus for students who are being evaluated for special education services? An example would be a first step student. They are getting ready to turn 3 and transition to public school.
Mm-hmm. So you would put those in, you would enroll those, you could put them in a P, and then when you do the preschool type, you check other, and then you put determining eligibility.
Okay. The second question we have is, I thought the preschool start date and enrollment had to be the same. When I would run count, they would show because of this. Has that changed?
Now, the preschool enrollment date can be different than the start date. The start date has to be the same or after the enrollment date.
Those are the only two questions we had right now. Let's give it a minute in case anybody else wants to put a question out there. We are taking questions through app.gosoapbox.com, and if you type in KDE data, that information was on the agenda and on the emails that have gone out too. So if you didn't get it when I said it very quickly, it's available there. All right, it looks like we've got them all. Those are the only two questions. We've been, and we're up against a break, so we're a little bit early, but that just gives everybody a chance to get another cup of coffee, some water, anything they might need before the next session. The next session that we've got, Taisha, thank you so much. I want to make sure I thank you before we go on. But thank you so much for presenting today. And I know you're new to KDE through all this, and glad to meet you virtually.
Thanks, everybody.
So thanks. So anyway, we've got a, oh, well, as soon as I said that, Tisha, we've got one. See, this question is, says I thought first steps went in as type in. Can you answer that question? Provide direction there.
It depends if you're going to do an RTI situation or you're doing an evaluation, they can go in as P and do the other. I'll check on the N, but typically what we've seen this year is they put them in as a P, but your preschool type is other.
Yeah, we've tried to discourage using the N's because the N's keep them out of, I think that affects state reporting. So I think the guides we've given over the last few years, but Lisa, if you want to jump in, if you know specifics, I'm more than glad to make sure I'm confident on that.
Preschool is a little unique, but most of the time for most of our state reports, we don't pull in enrollments, which are special ed only enrollments. It depends on the report. So that can be a little tricky, but.
It also becomes an issue when we run the report. Some people forget to go back in and change that N to a P. So
right, as the student does enroll.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big issue, is the enrollments roll forward, that it keeps those settings and that they forget to change them. So.
Right. So on that, we will provide answers to the questions that are being submitted today. We will post those online, so you can check back. We'll be working to make sure we get the appropriate guidance on this one too. So we've got some other folks that are saying that they use an N so that it doesn't pull in other counts. And they're asking if they don't qualify, I guess, for preschool, what should we do?
So then your district would have to decide whether you're going to go ahead and fund at a district level. Or so you would either end date them if you're not. If you're going to keep them, then you would keep that other box and provide the information on how the district was going to fund, whether you're going to use Title I funds or just put district funded.
Okay. Thank you. I've got another question that came in, but I don't think it's related to preschool. So we'll have to follow back up on that one. All right, thank you again. We will transition, we'll take a break here and we'll transition to the next session. We've got Jennifer.
There is one other preschool question.
Oh, got this one, okay.
They're basically asking about correcting records in the year. They say, I only selected one box for high school enhanced, so not high school, Head Start enhanced. Do I change it now? Is it okay for them to go in and modify the current year records to add that additional checkbox that you said that were needed when they're in Head Start enhanced?
Yes, that would be great because that'll clear it up for the March count. That would be awesome if you did that.
They also asked, what withdrawal code would you use if they don't qualify to continue in preschool, but you've enrolled them in the school? We may have to check with OFO on that.
Right, I'll have to check on that one, but we'll get that to you right away.
Okay.
Thank you.